once again translate to all the class 11 students. So in our last session we have discussed the how Indian Constitution was made and who were involved in the framing of the Constitution and what kind of election method they have used to elect those framers, right? So today we will start with a new topic, that is composition of Constituent Assembly. The composition law in the country rules was another dinalo onjugi khar discuss yusna miss khandis tamume ro dinalo susu chuyume ro ani onjugi Pakistan da digaji partition gi kengi ani composition de la mi chatam na lo ma bujuro ro odunju gi dinalo kewa khandis toyume. So we will start with the date on which 3rd of June 1947, on which the plan was proposed for the partition. Alright, so under the partition plan, which resulted in the formation of two new countries, that is India and Pakistan, which used to be a one nation under the British rule, right? So after the partition plan, they decided to form a two separate country, and in which one is a Hindu majority state, and on the other hand Pakistan has a Muslim majority state. So basically the partition was based on the religious majority. Okay, so initially, so when the election was held for the Constituent Assembly, that we have discussed in our last session, that during when election was held for the Constituent Assembly to elect the members to frame the Constitution, they were elected from both the regions of India and Pakistan, irrespective of their region. Okay, so that is the period when the partition plan was yet to be seen and yet to be made. So they have decided to elect the members from both the region for the Constituent Assembly of India. Okay, so once the partition plan was finalized, so the members who were elected from the regions of Pakistan, there are a number of people who were elected from the regions of Pakistan for the Constituent Assembly were ceased to be a member of the Constituent Assembly of India, obviously, because they were no longer a part of the Indian territory, right? So they were not allowed to represent the Indian regions. Okay, so the members who were elected from the Pakistan have were no longer a part of the Constituent Assembly of India. Okay, so initially when the members were elected, there were total 385 members. Okay, so 385 members were elected from both the regions, and after the partition plan for India and Pakistan, the number was reduced to 299. Okay, so that means out of these 385 members, 86 members were elected from the region of Pakistan. Okay. Alright, now how these 85 members were elected. Okay, so as we have already discussed in our last session, that India was prior to the independence, India was divided into two categories. The regions of the India were divided into two categories. The first one is the British India provinces, and the second one is the princely states. All right. So there were, prior to the independence, there were 11 provinces of British India provinces. Okay, from these British 11 provinces, 292 members were elected. 292 members were elected from the British India provinces. They were representing the British India provinces, 11 provinces, and the rest of the 93 members were elected from princely state, and they were representing the princely state. Now, princely state means the state which was ruled by the kings, right? Okay, so these 93 members, unlike British India provinces, they have went through election process, and they were, as we have already discussed in our last session, that these 292 members were elected indirectly. Okay, indirectly, and the rest of the 93 from the princely state were elected on the basis of consultation. Okay, so they were they didn't held any election for electing these 93 members. Okay, so eventually, since they're on the day they have started working on the framing of the constitution, let's see, it was on 9th of December 1946. On this particular day, they held their first meeting, right, for the Constituent by the Constituent Assembly. So since this day, this particular day, 9th of December 1946, they have started working on framing the Constitution, and it took them like 3 years to frame the Constitution. Okay, and eventually on the day of 26th of November 1949, they have adopted their Constitution, and after 3 years of hard working by these leaders, they have managed to adopt their Constitution. Okay, and within these 3 years, in a span of 3 years, they've held as much as 144 meetings in a span of 3 years, and after much effort was made by those leaders, they have finally managed to adopt their constitution on the day of 26th of November 1949. Okay, but they decided to enforce that same constitution which was adopted in the 26th of November 1949. They decided to enforce that constitution on the day of 26th of Jan 1950. Okay, now you must be curious that even though they have adopted their constitution on the day of 26th of November 1949, but they still decided to wait for another 2 months to enforce that same. Okay, so we were discussing the constitution was adopted, the Indian constitution was adopted on 26th of November 1949, but the leaders of India have decided to wait for another 2 months to enforce the constitution, and eventually the constitution came into force in 26th of Jan 1950. Now you must be curious that why the leaders have decided to wait for another 2 months, and exactly on 26th of Jan, why did they choose this particular day to enforce that constitution? Okay, so in order to understand that, we have to go back into the history of India as far as in 1930, during their freedom struggle, right? So during the freedom struggle, the Indian National Congress held their Lahore session, and in that session, under the leadership of Nehru, came to the conclusion that they will no longer seek any dominion status. Now, dominion status means so until 1930, they were seeking, they have been seeking like dominion status. That means they were willing to be a part of or under the rule of British government, British rule, but they all they were asking was they wanted their own representative to represent in their region. Okay, so since 1930s Lahore session, they started demanding the complete independence. They wanted a complete independence from British. So since then, on this particular day, they have been celebrating this day as a independence until 1947. Okay, until 1947, 1930 to 1947, they have on between these 17 years, they have been celebrating this particular day as a Independence Day. Okay, not as a Republic Day that we are celebrating nowadays. Okay, so during 1930 till 1947, they have been celebrating this day as an Independence Day. So during that time, this phrase became a very popular. That is Purna Swaraj. Purna means complete independence. Okay, so that was the main motive or motive behind the selection of this particular day. Okay, and since 1949, 47, since their independence, we have been celebrating this particular day as a Republic Day. Okay, all right. So now we will going to discuss a new conception of citizenship. Okay, now new conception of citizenship means, so throughout their framing process of the constitution, and if you look closely or observe the constitution of India closely, then we were going to realize how the framers of the constitution has emphasized the citizenship of the India. Okay, so they have stated clearly that in order to acquire the citizenship of India, or to become citizens of India, it is not necessary to have a religious pairing. That means regardless of any religion, people can have their people can become citizens of India.